this week's parsha is Parsha Shoftim. This Torah is based on a shiur I heard from Rav Bernstein. It's his 2013 shiur and the last 15 minutes of the shiur. And he focuses on the second Aliyah, chapter 17, verse 14. So it says, Ki tavo la'aretz asher Hashem Elokecha noten lach, yirishta v'yashavta ba, v'amarta, asim alai melech kechol goyim asher suotai. Right? When you come to the land that Hashem, your God, gives you, and possess it, and settle in it, and you will say, I will set a king over myself like all the nations that are around me. Right? And then the next pasuk says, Som tasim alecha melech asher yivchar Hashem Elokecha bo, etc. You shall surely set over yourself a king whom Hashem your God shall choose. Okay. So for this, the Gemara wants to know, well, when the Torah says this, is it saying when you ask for a king? Or does it mean you should ask for a king? As in, we're trying to, and this is a machloket tanaim, right? Is it a mitzvah to have a king over us? Is it not a mitzvah? Rambam paskins that it is a mitzvah. Others don't, but there are of course others who also do. They agree with Rambam that it is in fact a mitzvah to have a king. Okay, but despite all this, even if it is a mitzvah to have a king, we know that at the beginning of Shmuel Aleph, when the Jewish people asked for a king, it was considered a negative thing. It's quite clear. Shmuel did not like this idea, right? We're in Shmuel Aleph in the chapter Chet, right, chapter 8, and it says, like the Jewish people gathered together and they wanted to appoint a king, and this didn't appeal to Shmuel. He didn't like it, and God didn't like it either. He didn't think it was a good idea. But we need to ask, why isn't it a good idea? If it's a mitzvah to appoint a king over ourselves, what did the Jewish people do wrong? And not only that, but as part of Shmuel's response to the Jewish people, I guess, as they were going through the process of appointing a king, Shmuel says something very interesting. Let's leap forward to chapter 12, verse 17. So he says, Halok tzir chitim hayom, ekra Lashem, right? We're in the middle of the summer, right? In the time of gathering the produce. V'tem koloto matar, and he'll bring storms and rain. Uju ru kirat cham rabah, asher asitim b'nei Hashem l'sholach hamelech. And you'll know that what you did was evil. It was bad that you asked for yourself a king. Now our question is, well, how does A lead to B? You asked for a king, that was bad. God will bring storms in the summer. How do those two ideas connect? That is Rav Bernstein's question. And that, in fact, is the question of many Mefarshim, and there are many answers to this. But Rav Bernstein cites to the Ran. In the Drashos Ran, the Ran was a Rishon. He says as follows. It's a really important and powerful idea, and it requires deep thought and exploration. So the Ran says like this. What is the point of having a king? And to this we need to look to the beginning of our parsha Shoftim, right? In the very first pasuk says, Shoftim v'shotrim titan lacha v'chol sha'arecha asher Hashem Elokecha noten lacha leishvatecha v'shavtu et ha'am mishpat tzedek, right? And they shall judge the people with righteous judgment. Now, what is that? Listen, mishpat tzedek, with correct judgment, with true judgment. What does mishpat look like if it's not tzedek? What does judgment look like if it's not correct, if it's not true? How does that work? And moreover, there's actually another statement in the Gemara. It's in Sanhedrin Zayin Amud Aleph. It says, Kol dayan shedan din emet lamito, right? Truth in its truth, masha shechina beYisrael. So any judge who judges emet lamito, truth in its truth, masha shechina beYisrael. What is that? That seems to be reflecting this mishpat tzedek. What is truth if it's not true? What is mishpat if it's not tzedek? How do those two things work? So the question this all leads us to is, what is the role of a king? Why do we need a king? If it is a mitzvah to appoint a king, what's his job? Now, normally, the answer that would be given outside of Torah thinking is the job of a king is to legislate, is to pass laws. But now that cannot be the answer in Torah thinking, because for that we have the Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin, right, the highest court, at least the one in Jerusalem, right? The Sanhedrin can either be the great Sanhedrin in Jerusalem, which has 71 judges, or other minor Sanhedrins, which have 23, and they could be in different cities. What is the king's contribution if his job is not to legislate? And says the Ran, to answer this question, we need to consider what is the role and meaning of laws. Why do we need laws and rules? And the answer to this, of course, is obvious. But really, that only answers half of the question. That is to say, it's to promote civil order. we need rules, we need laws, we need to know how we're supposed to work as a society together. But that is only half of the equation in the Jewish perspective, because the other half of the equation says as follows. It's in order to promote the spiritual well-being of the Jewish people. After all, the Sanhedrin, they don't only legislate laws to make sure that people don't kill each other and don't steal from each other and that people get along, but it's also in order to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Sanhedrin's job is not only to rule with regards to kashrut and to Shabbat and Yom Kippur and all of those so-called ritualistic elements of Judaism, but it's also to legislate, to give us the rules for mishpat, right? To create a civil order in society. It's not only meant for civil order, it's also meant to enhance the spiritual program of the Jewish people. That is the dual function of laws. And so we see that there are two goals of laws. There's A, civil order, and B, enhancing the spiritual program of the Jewish people. Now, will they both be served equally at the same time or at all times? And the answer to that is probably not. Now, the reason why is because when you have laws to promote civil order, sometimes those laws can change. That is to say, they need to react to the people who are being ruled. There are some people who have a natural tendency, or at least a tradition or a culture of obeying the laws. And as a result, you don't need such strict laws because the people will obey them, right? You just need more lenient laws to deal with perhaps outliers, to deal with the general, with unusual situations. But in general, you need laws that aren't so strict because people generally adhere to the law. If you have people who are slipping and who do need harsh laws, then you need to revise the laws in order to enhance that civil order. But now, that same perspective cannot be seen with Torah, because Torah, with the Sanhedrin when they paskin, the laws are absolute. They're true for all times. They don't change with the times. Oh, well, let's see what people are like. We'll change the laws. That's not the way Torah works. The Torah has its laws, and that's the way they are, and they do not change. Now, that could be a problem, because even though that's true, the Jewish people might in fact change. And it might be that they aren't able to quite hold on that high spiritual level that the Mishpatim are meant to keep them at. It's really a challenge to the Jewish people because they need to rise to the occasion. Right? And therefore, when the Torah says to the Sanhedrin, your charge is to create correct laws, that means that in an ideal situation, the Sanhedrin should be able to dispense justice, which means true justice, mishpat tzedek, tedan emet lamito, true truth. There's no two ways about it. There's no, okay, well, let's just shift Torah law. That's not the way this works. It's mishpat tzedek. It cannot change. And in that way, the Sanhedrin is fixed. Laws of the Torah will not change, even if there's a disparity between the Jewish people and the laws that bind them. And therefore, the answer to that question of what we do as a response to the Jewish people who may not be able to live to that standard is actually an institution called a king, or the personality called the king, the melech. That is his job. The king's charge is to bridge the gap between the absolute response of the Torah, of mishpat tzedek, and to the measures that need to be taken for the Jewish people in order to keep them in line with Torah. As an example from the halacha, when a person commits murder, the punishment is death by skila, right, by stoning. Now, in order to get this punishment, there are specific laws that the Torah requires. There have to be 2 witnesses, there need to be warnings issued, there are specific halachic aspects that need to be met in order to punish this person. Now, the thing that happens with this is that murderers can end up slipping through the cracks, right? Because there are loopholes, there are ways for them to get out of it, and therefore people might start slipping more, right? People might not take the law so seriously. If the Jewish people, if they're not holding at a certain level, then things might start to deteriorate. And therefore comes the king. The king has the unique power that he can execute summarily. He does not need 2 witnesses. He does not need the warnings. He could kill just by virtue of his word. And in that way, he comes in as to round the corners, right? He's supposed to keep the people in line, right? He does it in an extra legislative way if they are not equal to responding to the Torah's laws. And now, knowing that, we come back to the Jewish people's request for a king, right? The fact is, what is it that they said? What did they say to Shmuel? They said as follows. Right? All the elders of Israel came to Shmuel. Vayimru elav. Hinei ata zakata uvanecha lo alchu b'drachecha, ata sima lanu melech leshavtinu kechol hagoyim. Bring a king so that he could judge us like all of the other nations. What did they want a king for? They wanted a king for mishpat, as a judge. That's not the king's job. The king is meant to come as an extra legislative matter, not in order to judge them. That's the Sanhedrin's job. But the way the Jewish people seem to be seeing this is that, no. We see mishpat as belonging to the king. Mishpat is in order to keep civil order, and that's it. The Sanhedrin, we accept their authority when it comes to Shabbat, and Yom Kippur, and Kashrut, and other ritualistic areas of Torah. But mishpat, that's not related to Torah. Those two things don't work together. There's mishpat, which is for civil order, and there's kashrut, which is God's laws. They saw it in a more mundane way. It was a way of demeaning mishpat, of demeaning Torah law, and therefore Shmuel came and said that is not what a king is about. A king is not meant to legislate, and therefore the sign that he calls for, as we see again in chapter 12, is haloktir chetim hayom, right? It's summer now, but the rain will fall, and there will be storms, and it will ruin the crops. Why is he saying that? Because what Shmuel is trying to convey is that you think, Jewish people, that a king is there because mishpat doesn't really belong to God. This is kind of like the civil order. These are the civil laws that need to govern society, and God doesn't take place with it. But really, says Shmuel, God does take place with it. There is a spiritual element to these civil laws, to these mishpatim. There is. In the same way that you'll look at the laws of nature and you'll be like, this has nothing to do with God, that's just the way the natural world runs. But the truth is, no. And the way that proves it is the fact that even in the summer, when it doesn't rain, of course we're talking about Israel, when it does not rain, God will make it rain, because God is also behind the natural laws. That's where we'll end. Shabbat Shalom, heavy topic, but that's an important idea to bring out from this idea of a king. All right, Shabbat Shalom.